Winston? Winston? Come back with that leg of lamb.
One of my favourite chapters in my latest cookbook, The Royal Chef at Home, is a proper Sunday dinner. Not just because it's a Sunday roast, but it brings back so many happy memories of growing up, childhood memories of my parents cooking Sunday dinner, my grandmother cooking Sunday dinner. Probably my favourite chapter in the book. I'm going to do a roast beef Sunday dinner for you today. A proper Sunday dinner, or Sunday roast, is something that consists of a joint of meat. In England it would be beef or pork or lamb or chicken, and then with that lots of vegetables, carrots, cabbage, anything that you want, peas, any sort of vegetables that you want in there. Brussels sprouts are super popular. And then if you're doing beef, it would be Yorkshire pudding, and of course, oh yeah, you'd have to serve horseradish sauce too. And don't forget the roast potatoes. They're just the best potatoes in the world. I'm cooking roast beef. It's my all-time favorite and probably one of the most popular roast dinners in the UK. You go to any pub in England, they've got roast beef on the menu on a Sunday lunchtime. When you're cooking roast beef, you can use beef tenderloin, but for me, all the flavor is in the rib. And I like a boneless ribeye, and that's what I've got today. When you're shopping for a ribeye though, always ask for a cut from the thick end, from the fat end. The rib goes like this, and on the fat end you have something called the spinalis, or the ribeye cap, which is this part here. And that is the best part on the whole beef. The spinalis, the ribeye cap. Look, it's on both sides there. That's because this cut came from the fat end of the rib. Now, you want to allow about a pound or just under a pound per person. If there's leftovers, don't worry, you can use it the next day, the next few days. I mean, it's so good when you're roasting this beef. I've just brought out my new line of seasonings, and in the seasonings, I've got a selection of gorgeous seasonings that are perfect for beef, amazing for chicken, and gorgeous with vegetables and fish. We've got the Buckingham, the Balmoral, and the Kensington, and I use the Buckingham because it's perfect with beef. And then the Balmoral, just beautiful with lamb, with game, with venison, and the Kensington, perfect with fish, chicken, and vegetables. Now this is a seasoning. It's not really a rub. You know, a Texas rub, you'd sort of slather it on and really rub it in, but this has got a fair amount of salt in there. So for this one, it's just a seasoning. And I'm just going to season lightly over the meat. Once it's got a nice dusting of seasoning, just pat that down into the meat. I've not put any oil on there yet. I can just rub that into the meat as it is. And I always think it's great to work on an aluminum tabletop there, just a little sheet of aluminum first of all, and then it makes it much easier and more hygienic too. Once I've got it seasoned, my seasoning can go back in the box. I'm going to put it in the oven with a splash of oil, 450 degrees, and I'm going to cook it for about 30 minutes. Once I get to about 30 minutes, that will sear it. After that, I'm going to drop the temperature to 350 and cook it a little bit longer. Roast beef dinner dates back to the 1500s and King Henry VII. But it became really popular in Victorian times. Back then people didn't have ovens in their house, and so they would actually take their joint of beef with them on the way to church and stop off at the baker's. The baker had finished making bread, the ovens were still hot, and they'd all leave their beef or their chicken or their pork, and it would be cooked in the baker's oven. They'd go off to church, and then after service come back, take their meat home with them, and then have that traditional Sunday dinner. Yorkshire puddings became really popular in the north of England, obviously in a place called Yorkshire. Yorkshire puddings were actually invented, I think, created as a way of actually filling up the family so that they didn't have too much beef. Beef was very expensive back in Victorian times, probably still is today. In Victoria times, and still a lot of families today, they actually have the Yorkshire pudding as an appetizer. So the Yorkshire pudding would be served with gravy, and you eat this batter, this beautiful, beautiful batter, like a sort of American popover, but it's even better. You would eat this with gravy, and then afterwards you'd have the roast beef dinner, and of course by then you were quite full, so you didn't need as much roast beef. This is my Yorkshire pudding batter, the one I used to make at Buckingham Palace when we did Sunday lunches for the Queen and for the royal family. We start off with some flour, and it's all-purpose flour. You think that with it, rising, you've got to use baking powder or self-rising flour, but you don't. It's the eggs in there that help make this rise and make them beautiful. Flour in there first, and then I'm going to put in my eggs. After that, the milk, and then the water, a little salt, and some pepper. Then I'm just going to whisk all this mix together. The secret to a good Yorkshire pudding, well, there's actually quite a few, but one of them is actually to make the batter ahead of time. Make the batter, let it rest, and you're going to get some amazing Yorkshire puddings. Once you've whisked it all together and there are no lumps in the batter, then you can just leave it on one side to rest. I like it to keep it at room temperature because then when it goes into the hot oil, it's not like freezing cold and it's got to heat up first, it starts cooking straight away. Talking of hot oil, we have the little muffin tins here, the Yorkshire pudding tins, and into this we're going to prepare the tins with some oil. It needs a fair amount of oil in there. When it drops in, it sizzles and raises up to the top as it cooks. We want about a tablespoon of oil. I know it's a lot, but it stays in the pan. About a tablespoon of oil in each one. Once the oil's in, I'm going to put it onto a baking sheet. It's just easier to lift it in and out of the oven. And then I've got to set it aside. My Yorkshire batter's ready, my tray's ready. When we come to cook the Yorkshire puddings, we're going to zap the oven up to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Hot, right? But it needs it. And then we get the oil smoking hot, and I mean smoking hot. And then we put the batter in. It starts to sizzle away, goes into the oven, and we just bring out pure magic. My favorite vegetables at Chef McGrady in the McGrady house are Brussels sprouts and carrots to serve with the roast beef dinner. Now, Brussels sprouts, you can just boil them whole, but there's not much flavour to them. And when I worked for the Princess of Wales at Kensington Palace, William and Harry just wouldn't eat the Brussels sprouts whole and like that. Nanny always had this battle with them about eating Brussels. And I said, why don't we put some bacon in there? They both love bacon. Let's put a little bacon and onion and garlic, and I mean, everybody's going to eat Brussels sprouts then, right? So that's what I do. Start off with some olive oil in the pan, and then add some onions. This is one of my favorite recipes in my cookbook, The Royal Chef at Home. Saute the onions until they get soft, and I've already cooked some bacon earlier and chopped it up. Once the onions start to soften, then I can put some garlic in there too. This takes the Brussels to the next level. The Queen doesn't like garlic, so we could never put garlic in the Brussels when I worked for her. Next, the Brussels sprouts, and I've shredded them, chopped them really fine. Don't worry if you cook too many Brussels sprouts, because you can save them and use them with some potatoes the next day, chop everything up together, put it in the pan, cook it with some oil, beef left over, chop that up and put it in there too. You've got something called bubble and squeak. I've got some gorgeous baby carrots on here too. I've just peeled them lightly, and they'll take about 8 to 10 minutes to cook. I want them nice and crunchy, al dente. It's all about the different textures as well as the beautiful colors on the plate too. Once my Brussels sprouts have wilted and softened, then I can add the bacon and a little black pepper. Give them a stir around, and they smell absolutely amazing. That bacon and onion and garlic Oh yeah, and of course the Brussels sprouts. We always serve potatoes with a roast dinner too. Now, you can use mashed potatoes if you want. You can use roast potatoes, or some people actually have both. The gravy from the beef over the mashed potatoes and the crispy, crunchy roast potatoes. I'm gonna do roast potatoes today, and I've taken some potatoes and I've cut them all into the same size pieces, peeled and into these little pieces. When you're doing roast potatoes, the secret is to actually parboil them. And parboiling is just a fancy word for put them in a pan of cold water, bring them to the boil, and let them boil for about 5 minutes or so. Now, what happens there is the outside of the potato starts to cook. Once that happens, we drain them off into a colander, give it a little shake, and they all start to go crispy on the outside and all flaky and all ruffled edges. Well, then we drop that into hot oil and we'll roast them in the oven. Once the potatoes are parboiled, and these have been boiling for about 5 to 6 minutes, then I'm just going to toss them together, and that'll just roughen the edges, and those rough edges will be really nice and crispy. Then they go onto a roasting tray with some oil, vegetable oil, lots of vegetable oil, and some salt. They can go in the oven then with the Yorkshire puddings, and they cook at the same temperature, 450. Once the beef comes out, then it's all stations go. We've got to zap up the oven to 450 degrees and get the potatoes in and the Yorkshire puddings in while the beef is resting. But first, we're going to take the beef and put it onto a plate, and then we'll let this rest for about 15 minutes or so. Here in the pan, we've got this oil. We don't need all of it, but we're going to use it to make the gravy. So drain off that oil, and then here, this is called the deglassage. This is worth its weight in gold. This is where all the flavor is. So this is going on the stove, a little broth in there, shake it about, and that will go into the gravy too. A little aluminum foil over the beef, just to keep it nice and warm. We don't want it to go completely cold, but we do want it to relax and let those muscles just relax, and it'll be gorgeous when we cut into it. Right, I've got my Yorkshire pudding tray in the oven, 450, the oil's getting hot. We want it smoking hot, and then we can put the batter in. My potatoes, they've got oil, salt on them, and they're going in the oven now too. We're almost there. You can see the excitement in my voice. A proper Sunday dinner, I love it. When the oil comes out of the oven, there's no time to waste. It's smoking hot, it's starting to get cold, so we start pouring this into the little cups. And then into the oven. Now we've got to wait. We can't open the door. You have to stand by the door so nobody opens it. They'll start to sink. We can leave them in there and we'll let them rise. They'll be about 12 to 15 minutes and they'll come up, be nice and golden brown. And the potatoes and the shelf in there too, they'll start to go golden brown too. All that's left to do now, while the Yorkshire puddings and the potatoes are cooking, is to make the gravy. The gravy for this is incredible. The flavors, you know, from the beef, that fat from the beef, we start off by adding some fat, and we get that hot, and then into there we put a little flour. Whisk all that in together to make a roux. Then I've got the juices from my deglassage. I heated them up on the stove, added a little broth in there. Look at that. And finally, more broth. How thick the sauce is, it's your choice. Some families like it really thin, like an au jus, but others like it nice and thick, so it coats the Yorkshire pudding and coats the beef. I'm a sort of in-between one on that. Black pepper, and we'll put salt in a few minutes. Let that simmer away and cook out the flour. The proper Sunday dinner means so much to me. It's the memories, it's the smells, It's the food, and that's what cooking's all about. I remember going home when I worked at the Savoy to Newark, my hometown, and I went to see my grandma, my nan, and I took her shopping in the town, and she said, I just need to get a big chicken for Sunday. A big chicken. She meant a 4-pound roasting chicken. And I said, Nan, you're on your own now. You know, all the family have grown up and left and got their own families. You don't need a big chicken anymore. You can just get a chicken breast or something. She says, I've always cooked a Sunday roast. I've always done something like a big chicken. I told all my kids when they grew up and left to start their own families that there'd always be a proper Sunday dinner on the table here at my house. People stopped coming, they got busy with their own lives, but you know, she cooked that chicken until she just couldn't anymore. I know we all wish that we'd gone round for one more proper Sunday dinner with Nan. My parents cooked the Sunday dinner too, and my brother and sister, we'd sit around the table, no TV, and it was talking to each other and enjoying the food. And we do that with my family today as well. When the kids are home from college and school, they come over on a Sunday because they always know there's a proper Sunday dinner and Dad's cooking, or Mum sometimes. My roast potatoes are ready. Look at those, don't they look amazing? Oh, crispy crunchy on the outside, gorgeous and tender on the inside. And my Yorkshire puddings, look at those. Oh my goodness, tried to climb out the pan, this one. Don't they look amazing? Oh, now it's time to start plating. The beef smells so good, and that seasoning with the celery in there and the mustard, the English mustard. I've put a link to my seasonings in the description below. The juices that have come from the beef, pour those into the gravy. We don't want to waste those. We can cut into our beef. Stir those juices into the gravy. Look at this beef, it smells so good. The Queen never used to like her meat really, really rare or medium rare. She liked it more well done. So she'd always have the first slice. So when we were at Buckingham Palace or Balmoral, she'd always get the first slice. Look, perfect medium rare. You can take this beef and put it onto the plate with those vegetables. And then some roast potatoes and the Yorkshire puddings. Don't worry if you make too many Yorkshire puddings. Let them go cold. Up in the north of England, they save them till tea time, and then they'll pour some golden syrup over the top of them in the microwave, warm them up, a blob of ice cream, and then a squeeze of lemon on the top. Oh, delicious. It's like hot pancakes. 2 Yorkshires, 3 Yorkshires if the camera wasn't on. Look at that. Just a little gravy now on the beef and some horseradish sauce. So there it is, proper Sunday dinner. Even if the Sunday roast is not your family treat, your family tradition, try and take one day a week where you all get together, family and friends, sit around the table, have a meal, your favorite meal, no TV, turn off the TV, sit there and chat, eat, drink, and make memories, because you know what, life's too short, and soon all we have left are memories. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment below. Tell me what your favorite is. Hey, you know what? We've hit 200,000 subscribers. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for subbing and for watching my videos. The next video is a Q&A, so leave your questions below and I'll try and answer them all. See you again soon.